This is Jon Conching, and welcome to the seventh episode of our biweekly show called Hospitality Hawaii. And during our biweekly show, we have conversations and casual discussions with industry leaders, executives, business owners, workers from all different facets of our visitor industry to talk about some of the different issues, concerns, challenges, opportunities that they might be faced with. Clearly, over the last 16 months, 18 months, our industry has taken a big hit, but it's tremendously encouraging to see how quickly it's rebounded from the unexpected surge due to the spring break and the continued growth of business from the domestic market. I believe in the latest HVCB numbers or metrics that they send out on a consistent basis, it showed that in the month of May, the visitor industry count, the arrivals from domestic origins, basically United States, was just about 95, 98% of the same period in May of 2019. So that's unbelievable news because people had thought that it would take a year or two before we got back to anywhere that at those levels. Now, obviously, what's still lagging behind is our international customers, and we know that'll take some time for all the different markets to deal with COVID-19 and ease their restrictions as well. So thank you for joining, and if you're not joining live, thank you for tuning in on some of the episodes as it's posted on the Think Tech Hawaii YouTube platform. So as is the case, my goal is to try to bring different opinions and thoughts from various people in our industry. So I'm delighted to have the guests for this show. And the title of this show is Today's Technology for Visitor Attractions. So with that introduction, I'd like to introduce the guest for the next 27, 28 minutes. His name is Alejandro Moxey. He's currently the Senior Director of Business Development for a company called RockeTrez. I have to admit, I don't know much about RockeTrez, but I'm excited to learn more about RockeTrez, the technology they're using, and how it can help different attractions and different companies, not only in Hawaii, but globally. So Alejandro, or as I know him better as Alex, has worked with Marriott. He's worked with the Expedia Group, both here in Hawaii and in Oceania. Has a tremendous amount of experience, not only in the technology side, but the travel side. So it's exciting for me to have Alex as a guest, where he'll share some of his thoughts and opinions, ideas about not only RockeTrez and the technology to help attractions and other companies, but also his thoughts on the islands and what's going on. I mean, he's a father, he's a friend, he has children he needs to take care of, and the visitor industry is our number one industry in the state. So it's important to him, as I know it's important to all of you who are looking at this episode. So without any further ado, my friend Alejandro Moxey. Welcome, Alex.
Jon, well, aloha, first of all, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It is not only great to see you, even if it is on Zoom, but really to be part of this initiative that you're doing here in Hawaii, helping us to really re-engage as an industry and understand, have the finger on the pulse on what's going on in the hospitality industry overall for Hawaii. So thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome, Alex. So before we get started and get into the detail about RockeTrez, why don't you share with everyone a little bit about your background? Now, I know you started with Marriott, but where are you from? Where did your schooling take you? How did you end up getting into the hospitality business? And then obviously your move to Expedia, a little bit about your career with Expedia, and then a big move. You took you and your family 3-4 years ago over to Oceania. Tell us a little bit about that, and kind of bring us up to speed as to where you are now.
Amazing. Well, I'll try to do it in not so long time, because it is quite a story. So Jon, just to take care of the accent and I guess the name for people who are guessing, I was born and raised in Argentina. And I basically, when I finished my high school, I decided to do my university degree in the US. And I started off in Colorado, from all places. And I spent my freshman year in Colorado. And then after about a year, I realized it was just too cold. So I went back to Argentina, and then an idea came to my mind of going back to the US and doing a summer school program in Hawaii. So I went to to do a summer school program, and I remember this vividly. After 2 weeks, I called back home from Hawaii, and I said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. I'm going to figure out a way to stay and finish my university here. So I did that. I actually ended up graduating from Hawaii Pacific University, and shortly after that, I got into the travel industry. To your point, so look, it's been more than 20 years since I've been in this industry, and it's a pleasure to be part of it. Right off college, I started off my journey with a tour receptive operator catering to Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries, and I did that for a number of years. And after that, life kind of took me to the mainland for a few years, and that's when I started my journey with Expedia. And that's been again a number of years ago. I started off in the Caribbean team, and basically I was supporting market managers who were taking care of all the Caribbean region at the time. There was only 3 market managers covering all of the Caribbean, and then quickly after that, I got promoted to market manager myself. And my territory was all of South America. And funny story, just to put it into perspective, at that time, I was the only market manager who was covering all of South America for Expedia. So my main goal was, to go to South America, visiting the big countries to get them excited about Expedia and sign up. Now, fast forward to today, we have 11 offices across the major hubs in South America. So that shows the amount of tremendous growth that Expedia had throughout the world globally. And then how I came back to Hawaii. So basically, I came for a vacation. And after a couple of months, I basically relocated with Expedia to join the Expedia team here in Hawaii locally. I did that for a number of years. And then, as you mentioned, I took a leap and went to the other side of the business, the lodging side, and worked for Marriott Hawaii for about 3 years here in Hawaii, covering all the e-commerce aspects for the company with their properties here in Hawaii. And then Expedia came back, knocking on my door and saying, "Hey, do you wanna come back?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I went back to Expedia to lead the team here in Hawaii. And as you mentioned, an opportunity opened up to go to Australia, and I did that for about 3 years. And that was a tremendous growth in terms of both professionally and personally. Our third child was actually born in Brisbane, where I was based for about 3 years. So we're definitely gonna have ties to that market. In terms of a learning curve, in terms of how to really react to a brand new market, a brand new team, that was a great experience. I was blessed to have a really an amazing team in Australia, out of a brand new office that we opened up in Brisbane. So that was amazing. Nothing but amazing memories from that experience. Now, in the middle of the pandemic last year, my wife and I were having conversations about, our next steps. And I think as many households, there was a few bottles of wine involved in terms of what we're going to do moving forward. And look, we decided to come back home, come back to Hawaii. And here we are a year ago, landed back in Hawaii on Oahu. And we're so happy that we made that leap. And to your point, I now have shifted from a 20,000 employee company or organization such as Expedia Group to a 50 employee called RockeTrez, which I know we'll have a little bit of time to talk about that in the next couple of minutes.
Okay, great. I'd almost forgotten that you had, or I don't think that I even knew that you were with Expedia in Latin America. For some reason, I always thought your career with Expedia was always in Hawaii. But so what's amazing to me, and when I look at what happened with maybe not just Expedia, but all the other online travel companies after 9/11, Now, obviously, they were well in place well before that, but it seemed like that's where the big growth opportunity came, kind of around 9/11. Then it just continued on pretty significantly. And I think we talked about it. It seems like the online travel agencies like Expedia and all their competitors seem to thrive when there are economic or other challenges, and it's probably the consumer looking for a better deal, right, or more options, as the industries start to rebound, and more people are looking to regain some of that market share, especially hotels and airlines. But it's interesting. So in your career, you have seen tremendous swings up and down with business levels. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? How did somebody like Expedia, what are some of the things you guys experienced, like in 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009, when the economy took a big hit, and then obviously it's ramped back up over the last decade or so.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's a very interesting point that you make, John, and yet the company really at the time, I think, was focusing on those specific markets or segments where those barriers to entry, to your point, were essentially non-existent, because there was basically more demand that was needed to fill in some of those rooms or attractions and activities or even flights. So I think what, from an OTA standpoint, in terms of, the customer confidence and, I guess the customer loyalty in terms of making a booking with an OTA that has this branded exposure and experience in the market of combining all the inventory into essentially one point of sale, or one OTA. I think that was one of the key features in terms of how Expedia and other OTAs were able to rebound after these economic impacts. So I guess that confidence level in terms of booking with somebody that the loyalty to a brand, potentially Expedia doing quite a bit of marketing and advertising on markets where they would see that as opportunistic, and therefore increasing that brand awareness to drive some of those eyeballs into these major OTA websites.
It's kind of interesting, right? Having spent maybe the last 31, 32 years working for major hotel companies and brands, I've seen a lot of changes from, hey, we don't want to, from a corporate standpoint or even a hotel standpoint, hey, we don't want to deal with any third parties, right? We don't want to deal.
I heard that before.
With medias we need to work with them, but we need to get their commission or their margins down. To different complete opposite perspectives of why aren't you doing more with the OTAs, and why aren't you taking advantage of all their marketing opportunities? It is actually pretty confusing. If you're a hotelier right now, there are a lot of different positions that the revenue people and the marketing and the corporate offices take. I happen to be spending some time with the general manager of a very, very well-known major branded hotel in Waikiki that did a special promotion with a number of OTAs, and he's filling up his hotel. Now, albeit, his rate is not great, but at this point, he said, my owners are just looking for total revenue, and they want volume, and these are the channels that can drive eyeballs and drive the booking. So he's very happy. Hey,
right.
Let's switch a little bit, right? So based on your background and knowing that the domestic market has been coming back great, but we're still struggling on the international side. So the last 3.5 years or so you spent in Oceania. I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm mistaken, if your responsibility was to get more business to Oceania, or was it equally to drive more people from Oceania outbound as well? So obviously Oceania business for Australia and New Zealand was tremendously strong for Hawaii pre-COVID, and it just dropped off the cliff come March or April of 2020. And we love to have it back. So maybe some of your thoughts on the international business coming back, and more specifically that Oceania business.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, John, just to clarify your understanding, my responsibility when I was in Australia was to drive inbound demand. So people traveling from outside to Australia, or actually to, maybe to rephrase that, to fill hotel rooms in the market, right, in Australia. So that was kind of my remit. So why I mentioned that as a kind of like as a caveat, because it was not only just international, but more so domestic, depending on the destination, right? You have destinations such as Sydney and Melbourne that, yes, they have more of that international visitation, but look, places such as Gold Coast or Perth or even the North Queensland Cairns would depend on domestic visitation. So to answer your question, as you know, Australia and New Zealand, so Oceania has been very strict in terms of how they manage the pandemic. So basically, they closed the borders internationally. They just opened up, I think about a month ago, a travel bubble between the two countries, so New Zealand and Australia. So they're able to do that visitation from one country to another. But they were very successful in controlling the pandemic. Now you see, I'm a rugby fan, and obviously in Australia and New Zealand, that was the number one sport. And I did discover that it's not only one version of rugby, but 4 or 5 different versions of different rugbies when I was there. But you see the stadiums now, and they're all full, and and nobody wearing masks or anything like that. So in that sense, I think Australia and New Zealand were really good in terms of handling the pandemic. Now, what that did, obviously, to international demand was basically non-existent to what we're seeing, similarly to what we're seeing here in Hawaii, but really focusing on how to drive that domestic demand. And interestingly enough, there's a brand that Expedia Group owns in Australia, which is called What If, the What If Group, which is mainly domestic, right? So the people in Australia really use that as their OTA, as their go-to OTA to travel domestically. And they were seeing large number of visitation to obviously to drive markets of the big city and even rural destinations. So I think in that sense, it points towards people trying to get away and get that kind of fresh air mentality, get that fresh air. So I think it's kind of similar to what's obviously happening here in Hawaii for us with the main numbers. And as you pointed out earlier in the episode, around domestic being equal or even higher than 2019 numbers for domestic arrivals. And if you think about fresh air, if you think about getting away but staying within the country, Hawaii is definitely the place to go. So we're probably going to continue to see that from a domestic standpoint here moving forward into the summer.
Yeah, well, let's hope Australia and New Zealand open up pretty quickly, and I'm sure it'll depend upon how many of their people are vaccinated, and as well as how many people in Hawaii are vaccinated. Hey, let's take a turn, and tell us a little bit about what you're involved with now at RockeRez.
Yeah, no, thank you, absolutely. So RockeRez is really an all-in-one cloud-based solution designed for mid to large enterprise tours and attractions. If we pull up the first slide, I can kind of walk you through some of the key features that RockeRez has. So from an operating system standpoint, I'm just going to briefly talk about a few of these. So starting off with ticketing and reservations, it's really the support for online, point of sale, phone, or even kiosk ticketing and reservation system. From an automation standpoint, the next one over is really around solving for marketing needs, such as automated emails, setting triggers with actions, even pre-trip emails and post-trip surveys, which is something robust from a marketing standpoint. It also includes a robust CRM or customer relationship management integration. It can handle group and private events, from venue management, CRM, and even contract creation and management. Manage memberships, which obviously this is huge for museums, aquariums, and other large attractions. It has the capability of dynamic bundling. Say, for example, you have a guest that would like to book an activity that includes tickets for each of their family members. They also want to include a parking pass, a T-shirt for their kids, and a set drink menu, they can do all that via this cart functionality that RockeTrez provides. And from an API from a distribution standpoint, I think this is huge, even here for us in Hawaii. And we talked about some large OTAs. RockeTrez has developed those APIs exclusively with some of the large distribution partners and the distribution players, such as Viator, Expedia, Groupon, Get Your Guide, and even some of the Asian OTAs. So, as I mentioned on the ticketing and reservations point of view, I have some visuals in terms of how that illustrates from one source of inventory. You can actually book tickets and reservations can be booked via different ways, being online booking, on-site sales, even phone reservations, and even self-serve as a kiosk. So you can actually make those bookings from one source of inventory in these different devices. RockeTrez also has the ability to power the full retail or point of sale. Which it really incorporates that inventory management program, so you can manage an attraction can manage their gift shop, their food and beverage outlet, so that you can even put the inventory for food and beverage if they're selling hot dogs, hamburgers, and so forth, or even a full menu. They can integrate all of that via this same system and sell it via the different point of sales across the attractions. You can manage memberships, you can manage private events, and I guess overall inventory management, as I mentioned. One really cool feature that I really like is their photo system, which is actually built into the software. And this is really a built-in photo management concept. So picture this, it tracks the customer photo journey. So somebody entering an attraction takes different photos across different exhibits. You can actually follow that person and have all those images in one profile, essentially, where the customer can go into a kiosk and essentially print their photos, edit them, even download them to post on social media with the logo of the attraction to create that customer that marketing for the attraction. So pretty cool feature. And some of our feature clients, as I mentioned, we're brand new in the market, brand new in Hawaii. And some of the feature clients here that I wanted to highlight involve Reunion Tower in Dallas, a big destination in Dallas, where people, it's one of the most photographed places in Dallas, really. So they're using RockeTrez and integrating with the photo system. Some other clients include Red and White Fleet out of San Francisco, Fossil Rim, Discovery Wellness Center, and an integration with Gray Line also happening at the moment. So really growing our plans for Hawaii. Obviously, as I mentioned, this is more that mid to large size enterprise. So think your Kualoa Ranch, PCC, even the Honolulu Zoo, and different aquariums that we have across the state. I think this is a solution that potentially can manage all the different features under one single software. So really, really cool. And to your point, me being passionate about technology, I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to join RockeTrez. The CEO, John Pendergrass, and the founder and CEO is actually the CEO and CTO, so Chief Technology Officer, it's great because you have a CEO that is truly vested into the product and really wants to maximize and solve for customer problems. So all the different features that you see and everything that's on the pipeline or the roadmap, it's really related to solving for customer problems on the tour and attraction space. So that's something that I am truly passionate about and respect from a CEO standpoint.
No, I like it. It's very, very exciting. I mean, as you and I talked, I think there's a lot of applications for it. I'm particularly interested in the CRM part of it because, it's all about marketing and getting people to come back again, tracking their spend, right? Sending reminders, nudges, emails, whatever it is to either get them to come back or maybe patronize another venue or another attraction that you or RockeTrez might be working with in conjunction. So mean, do you see an application with hotels and their restaurants and some of their activities? Say for example, like some of those Tihati nightclub shows. Do you see any application on a smaller scale for that?
I mean, look, John. I think from what I covered related to the photo system and that built-in integration, you and I know social media, photos. It's here to stay. Even videos. I think that's something that RockeRez is looking at maximizing that photo integration, where you have somebody even having a dinner at one of these Tihati production events. That they're taking a picture, you can remarket to that specific customer around reminding them the experience that they had from a CRM standpoint. You can do that all automated versus doing triggered emails. So I think that's hugely important, and one of the key features that again RockeRez developed, because the way that customers are transacting and interacting, and the importance of social media moving forward. I think they want to be ahead of the curve in terms of managing that that asset, really, that again at the end of the day is an asset for the attraction, for the hotels, for the food and beverage outlet, that they own that specific photograph that is attached to a specific client that is in their system that they can remarket over and over. So I think that's super valuable here.
Well, I think the future is bright for RockeRez. I mean, there are a lot of different attractions and venues here that I'm sure could use the upgraded technology and especially the marketing capabilities. Right? I mean, I love that idea about that photo journey. I'm not sure that I've seen anything like that before, or maybe there might be, but it sounds pretty interesting, the way to kind of capture all of that, the customer experiences and their memories all in one, right?
Absolutely. No, and yeah, I think that's one of the key selling features that I was super passionate about when I started looking at RockeRez, for sure.
I'll tell you, if there's an opportunity that the technology can be geared towards working with hotels, I'll tell you, hotels have struggled with how to keep in communication with their customers. Through the years, hotel brands have developed apps, gone away from apps because now there's so many apps that people either have to download or are invited to download, and sometimes people take advantage of it, and other times they, I don't want to have to go through that hassle of downloading an app, but I'll tell you, if RockeRez can come up with some type of solution to work with some of the bigger hotels to get people moving from place to place. Right, because for a lot of the bigger hotels, say like the Hilton, the Sheraton, and the Marriotts, and so forth, they have all these retail vendors that they need to cater to, and they need to drive business opportunities to the retailers, to the restaurants, whether they own them or their concessions, to the nightclub shows, and through the water activities and so forth. So it sounds like there might be a great opportunity for RockeRez there, and maybe that technology exists, or maybe it's a tie-in or an interface with an existing hotel system that they're working with right now. But anyway, so kind of in a nutshell, but how would you say RockeRez stands out out from all the different systems that are out there that are currently in place?
Yeah, no, great points. And look, I agree on the observation that you just made, and time is of essence, because I have my one-on-one with my CEO next actually tomorrow, so I'll bring this up with him. So thank you for that suggestion. But look, to answer your question, I think as I covered, it's really around the all-in-one kind of operating system concept. Managing your point of sale, inventory management, CRM, bundling different things, and that photo built-in system, which I referenced before. I think that's what stands out from the rest of the players in the market, and really where I truly believe there is that potential for simplifying and making it more efficient for tours and attractions to operate their business.
Good. Well said, Alex. I think our time is pretty much up as you and I talked. I mean, this 30 minutes goes by really quickly. So, hey, I just want to remind all the viewers, present or in the future, as they go to our YouTube channel, Been great to have our guest, Alejandro Moxey, Senior Director of Business Development for RockeTrez. A lot of experience with not only Marriott, but the Expedia Group. Anybody has any interest in seeing how the technology might be able to help their business, make sure you contact Alex. But Alex, thank you for joining us. And for all of you, I hope you gained some insight, not only at RockeRez, but how Alex feels about our industry, especially, the funding of HTA. We didn't have a chance to talk about that a little bit, but I know you know how important that is to keep the promotion and marketing on for the destination, because as Australia, New Zealand, and all the other destinations open up, I mean, they already are, but they'll be competing hot and heavy for that lucrative American and Japanese and domestic customers. So if you have an opportunity to send a note or talk to your legislators or our city council or anybody else that's involved in the funding issues, please share your opinion. But thank you very much for joining. This has been another episode of Hospitality Hawaii, and stay tuned for our next episode in a couple of weeks. So aloha, and thank you, Alex.
Mahalo, John. Aloha.